Live from Radio Row at SportsGrid's coverage of Super Bowl 58. I'm Joe Lisi, joined by former Chicago Bear quarterback Erik Kramer. Erik, electric atmosphere here in Vegas.
I love it. I mean, Vegas without a Super Bowl is electric, but then when you add that onto it, it's been awesome. And obviously being around here has been great.
Yeah, when you just see the environment from the days that you played back with the Chicago Bears, how has the NFL just evolved as a brand and what you see here on Radio Row?
I think just the enormity of how really fantasy football has brought a whole new audience of women into the game. Pretty much if you're in a fantasy league, it's going to be won by a woman most likely. And I think kids are now, they got Nickelodeon channel and all ways to broadcast it. It's just been an expansion. Obviously, it's going around the country, or around the world being played. And I love it. I mean, the more it grows, the better.
When you look at the quarterback position today compared to when you played, obviously different types of rules, more protection. Talk a little bit about that in terms of, because you set records for the Chicago Bears, 20, 30 years ago. What do you see out of just the quarterback position today in the NFL?
There's some great guys playing, and obviously it starts with Patrick Mahomes on one end of the scale, Brock Purdy on the other, who was drafted last in the draft of his year, and then you got everybody in between. I just think that it's been great seeing the execution level over time rise. Obviously the rules have changed quite a bit in terms of protecting the quarterback, which I think is a good thing. And I just, it's a fun game to watch. Obviously, everybody loves it when more points are scored and more yards are gained. But I think when I watch it, I watch for the execution level, and that's what's fun for me.
Do you think it's more in terms of preparation, how athletes are training today, or is it more part of the rules and how they really favor the offense and the defensive players can't bump and run, they can't touch illegal contact downfield? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, like in everything in life, it always evolves over time. And so now you've got a league where, yes, the rules are set to help favor the offense, but the year-round training that goes into it has evolved as well. And so you've got guys and organizations that really don't have training camp anymore. They have a training off season. And so it's not just on the field, it's off the field, it's sports psychologists, it's a lot of things that weren't available before. And I think rule changes aside, the executions level, because the players are putting more into it.
You talked that you played for the Chicago Bears, and we brought up in terms of the break, Justin Fields.
Yeah.
I personally think Justin Fields potentially could be one of the most dynamic, athletic quarterbacks in the league. I sort of feel like Matt Eberflus and that offensive staff with Getsy handcuffed him. Outside of DJ Moore, I didn't believe that they put a lot of playmakers around him. And I actually made the comparison like Jalen Hurts. They put A.J. Brown, they put Devontae Smith and Goddard around him, and he evolved as a passer. Do you feel the same way about Justin Fields?
I'm a slightly different, I have a slightly different take on that. After not this season, but the season before, I thought he had made enough progress then that would carry over into the season we just saw. Unfortunately, it didn't.
Right.
And so I don't see where he processes the game consistently enough, is accurate enough, picks the right choice enough to, foresee that this is the guy, because he's coming up on a contract.
Right.
Are we going to invest in him like we do the Patrick Mahomeses of the world? I don't see that. I think you reset the clock with a guy like, I know everybody's thinking Caleb Williams or Drake May. I personally don't. I think you trade Justin Fields. You could probably get a high second round or first round for him. Because remember, there's 3 teams behind him that only quarterbacks.
Right.
You've got Caleb Williams, who I guarantee is somebody's going to want to trade up for. Drake May, who's somebody's going to want to trade up for. And I keep trading backwards to get a guy maybe like Bo Nix, who you don't even take in the first round.
Right.
But in the meantime, you get not just someone's draft pick, you get a key player like a DJ Moore, only this guy may be an edge rusher. He might be an elite left tackle. Offense, he might be who knows. They got Montez Sweat during the season as was going to be a cap casualty, and is a young player. You can go get another one on the other side too. They need a center. They need a lot more than just a quarterback being one of them. But a lot of teams have proven you can play and win championships with not the number 1 overall pick, and a good quarterback with a great team around him, and I think that's where the Bears should go.
Let's talk about the Detroit Lions, because I know you played there as well,
Yeah.
and you talk about the progression under Dan Campbell and their new quarterback, Jared Goff, that came over in the trade for L.A. They have great young talent in terms of David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs and those wide receivers, Sam Laporta, the tight end. How does it make you feel seeing Detroit get to the NFC Championship and really have San Francisco on the ropes and almost win that ballgame?
Soul-crushing for me to be that close and then kick a field goal and then kick another one. But I'm not going to sit here and second-guess Dan Campbell, because he's done a great job, as well as the whole organization. But to be in a situation where you're not scrapping any longer for respectability. You're actually as good or better than the teams you're playing. And so I think if you just, to be good and win tight games, you got to be good fundamentally as a player. Well, you got to be fundamentally good as a decision maker, as a coach as well.
Talk about the Super Bowl on Sunday. You brought up Pat Mahomes. You brought up Brock Purdy. Sort of a little bit different in terms of their styles. Brock Purdy, more of a pocket passer. Pat Mahomes can do it with his legs as well. And Purdy has shown that over the past couple of games. But Pat Mahomes won 2 Super Bowls, and Purdy just took his team from behind against Green Bay and Detroit. Who do you think is going to win this matchup Sunday night?
You just laid it out, where there's 2 really quality teams in this game. They both have great talent, coaches on both sides, and I just look at it like, okay, Kansas City, along with Steve Spagnuolo as a defensive coordinator, is probably one of, if not the best defense in the NFL all year. Then you've got, apparently the receivers all had a meeting to decide, okay, now we're going to catch the ball. So they're good. And then you've got probably maybe the best quarterback of all time in Pat Mahomes, and you've got maybe one of the best all-time coaches in Andy Reid. Being in the town that places bets, I'm not betting against that.
If Mahomes does win a 3rd Super Bowl, you think he could be mentioned in the conversation with Brady, even though Brady has 7 and he would have 3?
Yeah.
A lot of people have said, Pat Mahomes is the best quarterback just from an athleticism standpoint and what he's able to do. Do you think he's in that conversation, even though 4 Super Bowls may be less?
Heck yeah. I mean, I don't care. Super Bowls, forget it. The guy makes great decisions. He's probably the best game manager going right now. And he's also the guy that makes probably the best plays of the year right now. So it's not his fault receivers drop passes. And so I don't know. I think he's up there with the best who've ever played.
All right, that game takes place on Sunday. I know you have a new book. It's called The Ultimate Comeback. Talk to me a little bit about that. It's basically your life story, correct?
To a degree. Outside the uniform or even inside it, I battled depression as an adult. Not all the time, but sometimes. And so playing with that is a little bit difficult. And so it goes into that a little bit. It goes into, I had a series of events that happened once I was done playing. I had a 18-year-old son, Griffin, who already had been battling his whole life kind of to succeed, fit in, do well in school, find friends, keep friends. Well, he ended up getting a drug addiction, left school to enter a rehab program, eventually was in an outpatient program, and was drug free for a good year and a half or more, and then relapsed and ended up having a heroin overdose. And then around that same time, about 8 months later, my mom, who previously had uterine cancer, survived a surgical procedure that was radical in itself, but then she ultimately succumbed to her cancer and died in July of 2012. Then around that time, my dad had some untreated acid reflux that turned into esophageal cancer.
Okay.
So there's no getting out of that one.
Yeah, it's tough.
And that was a long 3-year or so decline. And it put me in a situation where I was depressed.
Right.
Again, only this time far worse. And I ended up taking a gun to my head, and fortunately I shot, but it wasn't like I missed, but I'm still here, thank God.
Thankfully.
And so the book goes into that, but it also goes into the relationship I had with both of my parents and how that evolved over time, and with my own sons. And, you talk about Brock Purdy being a long shot.
Right.
I was the ultimate long shot too, because I wasn't I didn't even start in high school as a quarterback. And went to junior college, and I had a good college career from there at NC State, but then went undrafted. And so it gets into the perseverance of how you fight through that. So it kind of speaks to a lot of folks.
That's awesome. Where can people pick it up?
Right now on Amazon, like the rest of the world does shops everything on Amazon. But I've also got a website, ErikKramer12.com.
Okay.
That right now, what I want to transition into is speaking about this book.
Sure.
And just speaking in general. And so it's not set up for that right now, but within 2 to 4 weeks of Super Bowl, it will be.
It's great information, and we thank you for joining us today. Former Detroit Lion and Chicago Bear quarterback Erik Kramer.